Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Wine, Women, and Words. Thank you for joining us. As you guys noticed, Michelle is still out today. She's still dealing with schoolwork stuff, and she's in North Carolina visiting family, so we're giving her some time off. But joining me today, we have Jenni L. Walsh. The author of Becoming Bonnie and the new book that's going to be coming out, Side by Side. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And are you drinking anything tonight?
Yes, I am having a Cabernet, and it's in my Bonnie glass, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that is such a cool glass. Hopefully, was that specially made, or is it something we could get at stores?
Yes, one of my friends had it made for me when Becoming Bonnie first came out. I'm actually giving away a set of them as part of like a pre-order incentive for people who pre-order Side by Side. So the details are on my website, and you can enter to win a Bonnie and a Clyde glass. The Clyde one is dirty because I indulged in wine last night as well as Clyde.
That's acceptable.
Yes.
That's acceptable. And if you need wine in that glass, you can the Wink Wine Club. And you could get wines like this one that I'm drinking tonight. I'm finishing off the Chenin Blanc, or at least trying to finish it off. I have a bit to go. Who knows how tonight goes. With Wink, you can get wine that's personalized to you. And their wines start at $13 a bottle. And all you have to do is do a really fun, simple quiz. They ask you really personal information. Like coffee, things more sweet or earthy. So go check it out, and you go with our special code, which is if you go to trywink.com/www podcast, you get $22 off your first shipment of wine. So be sure to go to, again, it's trywink, spelled TRYWINC.com/. You pocket $22 off your first order of wine, and then you can go ahead and pre-order Jenni's book and put that Wink wine into one of the Bonnie and Clyde glasses.
There you go.
We just figured it all out for you because we're a one-stop shop here. So the last time, and guys, excuse the squeaking going on in the background. I typically like to keep them in my while I was at the pet store today. I thought, hey, let me get them some squeaky teddy bears. That'll keep them entertained. The problem is it's keeping them entertained. So for those of you who are watching this, you're going to hear periodically the squeaking of these stuffed bears. Hopefully for those of you listening, I can edit most of them out. Anyways, we had you on the show. We were talking about Becoming Bonnie, and It was a story of Bonnie going from this good little church girl, basically, to on the brink of being one of history's most infamous bad girls. And now coming out this June, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, June 5th.
Oh, it's coming up really soon. How exciting.
Very soon.
Is Side by Side, and that's a sequel to Becoming Bonnie, and that's all about Bonnie being the bad girl that we all know and love, right?
Yes. So just a heads up, every once in a while you freeze a little bit. So if I'm not responding right away, it's because you're static.
Not a problem at all. My internet's decided to act up today, so
naturally.
Understand.
But yeah, so this was the first book. This is Becoming Bonnie, which was then it just came out.
Cover.
Oh, sorry, you froze there, so I didn't hear you.
No worries. It was such a great cover.
Oh yes, and then they just revamped the cover for the paperback that came out this week, actually. All my days kind of blur together. And then on June 5th, we got this baby coming out. Ooh. And so this one, Side by Side, is a sequel, but it can be read without having read Becoming Bonnie first. So you could read them in either order. Becoming Bonnie is pretty much a prequel. So it's good that you can pick up one or hopefully both. But yeah, side by side, we just get right into the grit of the crime spree, and it's a lot of twists and turns. And it's funny that it was almost, when I was writing it, times where I was thinking people are not going to believe that this is real life, because there's so much just a craziness happening. I was actually talking to Elise Hooper. She was reading for me and then emailing me as she was going along. And there's so many times where she was just like, no, Bonnie, stop. Like, what is wrong with you? So it was fun to like get her reactions as she was reading.
That's the great thing about history, is when we're reading these events that are easier than fiction, it's things that we can't even imagine on our own happening in history. And I think every historical fiction author is like, I don't know if people are going to actually believe this. I think they're going to think it's fiction.
It makes it so fun. And I feel like, I wouldn't have been able to make this up. It's too good. That sounds bad to say. And it's crazy because it's so different than the film, like the 1967 film. I mean, that movie did amazing and won tons of awards and was hugely popular, but they definitely didn't have the time. It was like 12 minutes long. So they didn't have the time to go into all the depth and details of what actually happened in the 27 months where they were on this crime spree. So I was able to dig a lot deeper into what happened to Bonnie and Clyde. So I learned so much while writing side by side, just about like everything they went through. Like at the end of the crime spree, Bonnie could barely walk. And in the film, she looks beautiful.
She could barely walk?
Yeah, there's a point where she was in a coma. So I bring like that scene to life and everything that happened leading up to it and after. So she really was completely different than I had expected from seeing in the film. I mean, there's a point in the film where she's unconscious for a while, but in real life, she was in a coma for weeks. So it was crazy. Did I?
Okay, yeah, sorry, we froze.
Like, did I lose you?
So there's where I caught you was there was a point where she was unconscious for a while.
Yeah, in the film she's unconscious for a little bit, and I think W.D. Jones is driving her and Clyde around. But in real life, she was in a coma for weeks, and they didn't know if she was going to survive. So it was, I mean, touched upon in the film, but not to the depth of real life.
I think that one of the reasons why people are so fascinated by her is because she's a woman who breaks the stereotypes for that time. Because we're looking at the roughly late 1920s and 1930s. Am I correct?
Yeah, early 1930s. They end up dying in 34.
Okay, so you still have those quite a bit of those gender norms that are being pushed, and she breaks them. Do you think that part of that is why we've been so fascinated with her over the years?
Definitely. I mean, it's not too long after like the Victorian era. If you think about it, we just have the war in between that gets the first war. And then it was also during this time where your only source of entertainment, since we're in the heart of the Great Depression at this point, was newspapers. Like everyone could essentially afford a newspaper, or if you couldn't afford it, there was copies laying around. Like people used them as blankets. Like they were called Hoover blankets. So newspapers were readily available, and Bonnie and Clyde were pretty much in the headline every single day. Like even when they weren't committing crimes, they were still in the headline because it sold newspapers. So they became this element of entertainment for people who didn't really have any other way to be entertained.
And it's such a fascinating story. Now, tell me and tell us. I know the answer to this, but I'm not sure if other people know the answer to this. Why is the book named Side by Side?
So Bonnie has a real life poem that she wrote a month before they were ambushed. And let's see if I can get this right. So it says, someday we'll go down together. They'll bury them side by side. To the law, it's relief. Oh God, I'm gonna mess it up. But she says how they're gonna marry them. Damn line. She must be buried side by side with Clyde. So that's where the title came from for the book.
And that's such a great title because, I mean, when you first, especially knowing the background to it, because when I first looked at the title, I was like, because it's not, you know, a title that you would expect to go for a sequel to a book, or, you know, you've got the prequel and got side by side, which, you know, you would think that with a lot of, you know, books where you have multiple books, you have some sort of connector to it. And I was like, huh, side by side sounds really interesting. And yeah, it's such a great story to it, and have like the real meat to them. It's not just words thrown on a cover. And it relates to the story.
Yeah, I mean, the original title was actually just Bonnie. And then my publisher was thinking that maybe there could be some confusion between Becoming Bonnie and Bonnie. And then we really wanted the second book to be able to stand alone and like be the hero. So they wanted to differentiate it a little bit more from Becoming Bonnie. So that's where we were like, all right, let's figure out this meaningful title that can really set this book apart. And then if other people want to read Becoming Bonnie, or if they've read Becoming Bonnie and they want to continue the story, then we're good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people like me who read Becoming Bonnie and we want to continue with the story by the pool, we'll pick up side by side because it's great for a summer read. I mean, who doesn't want a story of a love and going out and wreaking havoc in the countryside, or in the Midwest, I should say, not just the countryside.
Yeah.
It's a great summer read. And then, you know, if you haven't read Becoming Bonnie, you've got a couple weeks before the book side by side comes out. So let's be realistic here. You can pick up Becoming Bonnie now.
Yeah, and you buy it tonight and then read it by the 5th.
Exactly. I mean, you can get it on Kindle. It's on Amazon, remember, at this point in time. And so you can get it. You've got no excuse. But then again, if you want to read side by side first, we'll forgive you. You can do it. Yeah. So for the title of this episode, I put Celebrating History's Bad Girls. So, I mean, we're celebrating Bonnie and Clyde, and we talked about the book. I thought maybe it might be fun to take an opportunity to kind of explore his is up there with Bonnie. Because, I mean, I would say, at least in American folklore, she's in the top 5.
Yeah.
Most infamous women. What other bad girls you think might go on that list?
You know what? I haven't read this book yet, but I really want to read that new book about Lizzie Borden that came out from, was it like Atlantic?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm blanking on the See What I Have Done or something like that. It's been on like my to-read list for like ever now.
I understand how that goes. I have a to-be-read list that I'm never going to finish, ever. Yeah, Lizzie Borden is another person who has struck our collective imaginations. A girl, late 19th century, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure when it's set.
And she goes and kills her family with an axe. And there was a whole rhyme about it, too. I used to know. Yeah,
giving them wax and something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just that morbid as a child, so.
Still like unsolved to this day, essentially, because she was never convicted. So I think that's why it's so interesting. And I would want to see, Sarah Schmidt, I think that's her name, the author. Things come to me randomly. But I was curious like how she would end it, like if it's clear that Lizzie did it or if she left it like ambiguous. I think that's one of the main reasons why I want to read the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always those
murder
cases. Sorry, it's always those murder cases where when we don't know for sure if the person actually did it, that captures our imagination the most, I think.
Yeah, and
there for a moment.
I know I never know when to respond because you freeze.
Oh, my internet. And this is one of the great things about being able to edit the audio. So if you guys are watching this and getting really frustrated, don't worry. The audio is going to have that all edited out, so it's going to be nice and smooth and pretty. Video, because we're live, it's got all the bumps and bruises. And then the audio is nice and smooth. So I'll put on Jane the Virgin, and while I'm watching that, I'll have my earphones in and I'm editing through an episode. Because, yeah, I'm teaching myself how to edit audio, and that's fun. Let me see here. You know, another one that's in our collective history that's very much a two-part, which is was Anne Bonny, another Bonny. Maybe something there with the name. So if somebody plans on naming their kid Bonnie, watch out. And I'm suddenly blanking on the other pirate. Mary, I want to say.
Yeah, I was actually researching, you know, those outlaw type women the other day for an essay that I was doing, and her name came up, and now I'm blanking on it too. And I will say that I know of a friend who wrote an Anne Bonny book, so I have my fingers crossed for her that it gets picked up by a publisher, because I am dying to read it, and that's all I can say because I don't want to call her out on here, but I just really, really want it to get published because I would love to read an Anne Bonny book.
Oh, an Anne Bonny book would be fantastic. Let me see here if I can pull it up. Because, I mean, when you think of pirates, you don't female pirates being those the bad ones. They're always the damsels in distress.
Yeah. I was actually just reading about
Mary Read. That was her name. Mary Read. There. Sorry.
Okay, yes.
No, go ahead. You were just reading about.
I was just reading about this river pirate, and I'm gonna forget her name now, but it was like something the goat, and that was her moniker, because she started in New York City and she would go into alleyways and headbutt men in the stomach and then pickpocket them in the process. So it was like something the goat, Sadie the goat, I think. And then she ended up getting into this like horrific brawl in a bar with this nemesis of her, and like bruising like her pride and like her face or something. And then so she left her passion of headbutting people like goats, and then ended up becoming this river pilot and going up and down the Hudson and ransacking like mansions and taking people hostage for ransom and stuff. And I was like, this is such a crazy individual. Like,
oh
yeah.
I have never heard of somebody headbutting people for like in the stomach just to rob them. That's just so crazy. Yeah. I wonder if she was short. So I mean, so head, or she a ramming rod and just go straight at them.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what to visualize there. I feel like I need to research it more, but the whole idea of just like goading somebody just seems crazy.
Huh. I was gonna say I'm gonna goat my husband this weekend, but that does not mean what this means, and it kind of sounds.
This is gonna get weird.
Yeah, so we're just gonna move on. Here at Wine, Women, and Words, we do like to keep it classy. I was thinking there was another great one. One of my favorites in history is Sarah Josephine Earp.
Oh yeah, so the last woman standing. I have yet to read that one too, and that's another one that is on my list.
Oh, I haven't heard about that one. The last one's
Thelma Adams, I think.
Okay, I have to check that out, because like I had gotten, my husband and I, when we moved back to California from Texas, we took this really long road trip We went up to Wyoming, and then across to Sacramento, and then down the coast.
Wow.
To get back to LA. Yeah. And he went to Wyoming because he loves fossils, and there was a place where he could go and dig out fossils. And so I spent my day one town, and I found a bookstore that had all these great books in the Wild West. I picked up one on Billy the Kid and a couple others, and I picked up one about Sarah Josephine Earp. And I was reading it and getting really, really into it. And it turns out that this book that was like I Married Wyatt Earp, I think it was the name of the title of the book. Getting really into it. Turns out the book is actually fiction.
I read that. I was reading her
with discredited
the other day.
Yeah, and I was so upset, and I was like, oh, there needs to be a better story. So now I'm going to have to find that one now.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's Thelma Adams.
All right, I'll have to email you about that because I don't have a pen handy. So I'm going to have to pick that up because I think she is just so fascinating as a person. She shows up corral to her estate and her people in that book. She was an actress when she showed up. Some historians actually think she might have been a brothel prostitute.
I heard that earlier in life she was.
Yeah. And her estate, actually, they're very involved in keeping her reputation intact. And they dispute that.
Naturally.
Yeah, I mean, some people would embrace it, but I can understand them not wanting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she married a guy, and she ran with the wild child people of the Wild West, and then she met Wyatt Earp while she was still married. They fell in love, and one of the things I also love is that their story didn't end at the OK Corral. She goes off I want to say panhandling with him up in Alaska. She follows him all over the place, and they just have these wonderful adventures together.
Now I'm gonna have to go buy Thelma's book just because I'm like, ooh, that sounds really interesting. I'm like, I was interested in her before, and it was on my list. The cover is beautiful, but yeah, it's gonna move up my list now.
Oh, good! I sold you on the book.
Yeah.
And I love a beautiful cover. I mean, like I saw a beautiful cover. The author should be commended on that. So do you have any other crazy or misbehaving women in history?
I'm trying to think who I had on that list for the essay that I was doing. There's a lot of outlaws from the Wild West, women from that time period. There was a Stagecoach Mary, but she was like a good woman. She was a little rough and tough. I think she was the second woman to be part of the Star Carrier system, which is like delivering mail by, they say stagecoach, but I heard she did it by wagon, not a stagecoach. And she was like the first Black woman to do so. Oh. And she would just pull out her gun and like take care of anyone who tried to steal the mail. Like, so she was this like heroic woman. And then I read about a woman who actually was one of the people who stole from the stagecoaches. And I'm blanking on her name right now, of course. But yeah, the Wild West has like some crazy women. I feel like during that time, like there just weren't that many women who became popular, like that go down in history. So when you hear their name, you're like, oh yeah, like you have like Annie Oakley. I think there's a new book about Annie Oakley coming out. I think later this year, or later this month, or summertime at some point. But Annie Oakley is cool.
Yes, I do love Annie Oakley. She's a fun character. And I feel like, with Westerns, I feel like there's this whole untapped market, really, for women in Western stories. I mean, you get some of it in Westworld, which, which I dig. And then Netflix gave it a shot, and that wasn't. I didn't care for the one that Netflix did.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, the problem with that one was that it was supposed to be like a town run by women. And it was supposed to be like this real feminist story. And it turned out to be rolled over a lot of sexual abuse. So it wasn't really what it was, planned out to be. I mean, if I want something, hell, I think When Calls the Heart, a Canadian show about the Canadian Wild West, is far more feminist than that story was. And so but I feel like, we have these stories like with Sarah and with Annie Oakley and with the other people that relies on. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, the real history is so much stranger than what we can come up with in fiction.
Yeah, totally. This conversation is actually getting me super excited because I can't say too much about this, but the book that I'm currently writing is set during the Wild West. So it's like funny that our conversation took a turn there, just like organically. In my mind, I'm like, yes, this is awesome. But it's like set during the California Gold. So it's been so fun to research. And then the California Gold Rush also correlates with like the Oregon Trail. So it's like both of these like super cool topics that are like meeting in my current work in progress. So it's been so fun to work on.
Oh, that is so cool. And I'm so excited to hear that you're doing a story on the gold rush.
Yeah. And it's another real life woman. So it continues that genre, I guess, for me, of like biographical historical fiction.
Awesome. That is so cool. That's an area that I feel like I need to know more about. Since I'm an adopted Californian, I haven't learned that much about the California Gold Rush history, though I have made some trips to those deserted gold rush towns. I say gold rush towns because they're now kind of tourist traps.
Yeah.
Cool, and so it'd be neat to learn more about that and more about the women involved in that. And fun fact, the first story I ever wrote when I was a kid was about the Oregon Trail.
Really?
Yes.
Did you used to play the video game?
Yes, I was obsessed with the video game when I was a kid.
I think that's why I get so excited about it when, like, I didn't realize that it was going on the same time as the gold rush. Like, it was kind of like the later 1800s where it was like really popular. But you still get a little bit of it during like the California Gold Rush time. So I didn't realize that it was during that same time period. And then I saw it, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I'm having flashbacks of like my childhood. So I feel like anyone in our age group is going to be like, this is awesome.
Yeah, we definitely are. I mean, I remember when I was in the second grade, we did a whole thing on and we spent time learning it. And we had an assignment where we had to write a story about the Oregon Trail. And I wrote this story about this family, and I remember it to this day. It was a story about this family told from the perspective of the daughter. And apparently it was so good that it made my teacher cry.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. I should have known then that I should have been a historical fiction author, that should have been my calling.
Start young.
And be like, hey, this is my genre. I should have known then.
I think it's time to break that baby back out.
It might be.
Let's start a Wild West trend in historical fiction.
I love it.
Do it. We'll contact Thelma Adams because I feel like she kind of really got it going.
Absolutely.
We'll just follow her in.
I love it. Or we can do a short story anthology to start it off. Get a bunch of others in.
Oh. There you go.
Exactly. See, this is what I do best. I come up with great ideas and then like, okay, implement them and go.
Now do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I need more wine for that.
I can help you with that. We've got this great partnership with the company Wink.
Do you?
We do. at just WWW podcast, and you can get $22 off your first order.
You may just do that.
Yes, and then you can drink all of that and then come up with great ideas and be like all gung-ho about doing this short story anthology about the Oregon Trail. The Wild West, I'm sorry. The whole Wild West.
Including the Oregon Trail.
Absolutely, because I mean, we can't do an anthology on the Wild West without the Oregon Trail.
Yes. And you know how like those like skulls come up when you die because everyone always dies on the trail? Everyone always gets cholera or something.
Yeah, exactly. They get cholera. Yeah. One of my characters is going to have to die of cholera.
Mm-hmm.
Or diphtheria. One of the two. It depends on how creative I get.
There's so many ways to die.
Yeah. I remember they redid the game, gosh, in the early 2000s, I think it was.
Mm.
Or late 90s, early 2000s, because I play it with my brother and sister. Really at the time. And they had a pet rabbit, or we had a pet rabbit, I should say. And this is going to sound cruel and horrible, but my little brother, who was a demented little thing, he had to be like no more than like 3 or 4. We thought it was really fun to kill the bunnies. And my sister was traumatized by this to the point where she hid the game on us and wouldn't let us play, even if it was by herself. And at the time, she had to be maybe 5 at most.
Oh my gosh.
She hid the game on us so that he and I wouldn't be able to play, because when we got in the game, we were going to kill the bunnies, and she couldn't take us killing the bunnies. We were that bad.
That's kind of alarming, but I feel like you've grown up to be an upstanding young woman, so it's okay.
Yes. I'm relatively upstanding. And my brother is getting ready to go to medical school.
Okay, so he turned a corner and went the right direction.
Yeah, he's fairly upstanding too. Sometimes, it's questionable because we do have the same genetics, but I think he's got his shit together more than I do. So I actually think we are about at our time.
That went fast.
I know. I haven't been doing a whole hour without Michelle. But I talked about the book. Sorry, I got a weird echo going on. But with that, and all my internet problems, I think it's good. Call it a night. And bring up side by side again so everybody can see it.
Yes, here we go.
And it's available when?
June 5th.
June 5th. And can we pre-order it now?
Yes, pre-order it. And then if you go to my website, JenniLWalsh.com, I have a pre-order incentive where I'll send you free gifts for any pre-order, or if you request it from your library, I'll send you some free gifts. And then you can enter in to win some mugs and a t-shirt that says Bonnie Loves Clyde and bookmarks and other awesome stuff. So yeah, it's all on my website.
Is it better than the out shirts that I found on my way to Vegas?
Is it what?
Better than those books.
I forgot about the sequin shirt you found. It's not as bedazzled, I will admit, but
this past January, I was on my way to Vegas, and one of the casinos randomly has Bonnie and Clyde in there as an exhibit. And you know what might help the echo? If you mute your side.
Okay.
You see where the mute? I think. Okay, there we go. All right, so. Oops. On the way to Vegas, so they have the car that's all shut up, all these bits of memorabilia, and in the shop, there is bedazzled, fabulous T-shirt. And it's like, it has Bonnie and Clyde, or the famous Bonnie car.
The death car.
I'll take pictures of it. Yeah. The death car, yes. I took pictures to buy one and send it to Jenni because it's so bedazzled, fabulous.
I totally used to have bedazzled jeans and shirts and stuff. I would have put it with my collection.
Yeah, I had that bedazzled denim.
Yes.
Every 90s girl had it.
Oh, totally.
And so we will have those links on the website, so you can get over to Jenni's website and get your wine glasses and the books and everything.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for any stoic stares as I was waiting for the screen to come back. I feel like there's so many times where I was just like, what?
And there are times with this technology that sometimes if you go back and watch ours, it's going to be fine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Technology. Someday we'll figure it out.
One day.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for coming.
Yeah.